part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Thank you for downloading the Chase Smith Podcast, proudly part of the Press Play Podcast Network. In this episode, I interview renowned Steelers fan Dave Dameshek. We discuss this crazy final week of the NFL season, the playoff-bound Steelers, the AFC North, Baker, and the upcoming NFL quarterback draft. Let's get it! Here with me, someone I got to know last season, and we've become somewhat of a Twitter friends. I don't know if that's a real thing, but you can listen to him on the Extra Points Podcast Network, -3 with Shaq and Schwartz, available on all podcast platforms. Maybe you've heard or seen him on the NFL Network, Jimmy Kimmel Live, or the Adam Carolla podcast. A renowned Steelers fan, Dave Dameshek. Dave, thanks for coming on the pod. And I have to be a good sport about this. Congrats on the playoffs. Congrats on the playoffs for the Steelers.
Very classy of you. A pleasure to speak once again, Pally. Yeah, I mean, I am just over the moon. I just think this is the greatest thing. This is not, I never thought, I didn't think in March, I didn't think watching after the Browns vanquished the Steelers in Heinz Field last January. From that moment to this, I never thought, hey, maybe the Steelers will win the next Super Bowl. But nevertheless, this ranks among my favorite Steelers seasons ever. Just a knuckleball of a year that's been really funny and fun to watch. That as upset as everybody is today that they somehow got into the playoffs, amuses me to no end. So yeah, I'm tickled pink.
I want to touch on that because I have to admit, when I first asked you on the show, I didn't think we would be in this spot. I didn't think you'd be in the playoffs. We'd be at home. Like, I was just not what I expected. I wanted you to come on and offer a eulogy to Ben Roethlisberger's career, but here we are. And we talk in pre-show. The last 36 hours of football has just been incredible. And was there ever a point last night where you were like, oh my gosh, we might actually not make the playoffs? Was there ever a point last night?
Yeah, but I really do. I mean, as I knew I would feel when it started the fact that it's like, are they really going to wind up tied? It didn't bother me because it feels almost like a matter of fact. And it feels anticlimactic that now the Steelers actually have to go to Arrowhead and presumably take a whipping. I mean, they just got, typically in the NFL over the last couple of years, if one team has another team's number, that tends to be consistent. Now, the Chargers did beat the Raiders. Well, the Steelers, yeah, right, perfect, right, exactly. Bet Roethlisberger over the Browns for the last 18 years, but I guess the Chargers and Raiders split their series, so that debunks it out of. But the Steelers probably are not leaving Kansas City with a victory. But I just how crazy it was. I felt like, what's 9-7-1 in a year where a lot of talking heads in Pittsburgh and out said, this is a 6-win team. What's the point of bringing back Roethlisberger and all that? It's very satisfying. And like I say, funny to watch everybody get so upset about it. When it hit me, to answer your question, it all starts with the Colts losing to the Jags.
Correct.
Like, none of it matters if that doesn't happen. And as you're watching that game early on Sunday, as you start to see the score, it's like, okay, the Jags are up. See, that's what makes the final week of the regular season fun.
And then you had to beat the Ravens. Right.
And then you're like, well, okay, well, the Steelers, now the Steelers are losing to the Ravens. And now the Jags are up 2 scores. Oh, the Jags are up 3 scores. Oh, the Jags are actually going to win this game. Sadly, the Ravens are about to go up 2 scores to start the fourth quarter against the Steelers. And so this is going to be really sad that the Jags are actually going to pull the impossible dream off and the Steelers aren't going to hold up their end of the bargain. And then when everything happens at once, you feel like this is so great. Who cares what happens in the Chargers Raiders game? This is a victory to do this. But as you start to get into they're really going to overtime. Like, oh wow, this game's really going to wind up tied.
Yeah.
As that starts to hit you as Oh my God. But I mean, like I say, the result probably is the same. And by this time next week, next Monday, the Steelers are in the same place, which is out of the playoffs. But yeah, that would have been pretty sad if they would have missed out after everything that had to happen, that did happen to get to that moment. So yeah.
For people who don't understand the words that are coming out of our mouths, the Pittsburgh Steelers had a chance to make the playoffs going into Sunday afternoon. They needed the Indianapolis Colts to lose to the worst team in the NFL, and they did. The Steelers needed to beat the Ravens, which they ended up doing. But then the Sunday, what is this, Monday? The Sunday night football game between or is this Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is. The Sunday night game between the Chargers and the Raiders, that could not end in a tie. If it ended in a tie, then both the Chargers and the Raiders would go to the playoffs, and the Steelers would be eliminated because of the Steelers tie against the Lions in the middle of the season. Well, as the Chargers and Raiders game goes on, the Chargers have the ball. There's like 2 minutes left. Justin Herbert converts multiple fourth down conversions, and they hit the extra point as time expires to force into overtime. They both go down and kick a field goal in overtime, I think. And now all of a sudden the Raiders have the ball, and there's 2 minutes left, and they're at midfield, and there's a penalty. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this game might end in a tie, and the Steelers won't make the playoffs. They kept cutting to two fans in the stadium in Vegas that were wearing Steelers jerseys, and their faces were just incredible. They were
in
nervous.
The fourth quarter. The crazy moment was in the fourth quarter, because ultimately from the Steelers side of things, it doesn't make a difference who wins, Raiders or Chargers. Just don't finish in a tie is all that matters. And at one point in the fourth quarter, the Raiders went up. The Raiders scored a touchdown and went to go up 12, and then went for 2 to make it a 14-point game, which is scary from the Steelers standpoint, because then conceivably 2 touchdowns, 14 points, overtime. All right, scary, but they missed the 2-point conversion. So now the Raiders are up 12. And it was in that moment that I said, that's when I got scared that maybe I had just cast some sort of a pox, because I was like, 12 points. Okay, that's great news. That's perfect for Steelers fans, because 12 points, there's no tie there. And lo and behold, and somehow they get the 15. The Chargers then score a touchdown, convert the 2, kick the field goal to force it. What an all-time crazy day. Football's the best, and I feel sad for people who don't watch sports.
It is the best. It is the best. You're on a whole network centered around gambling. What were the odds going like for that tie? Do you have, is that something that I
don't know about that. I know going into the day, I saw something like 5% chance for the needle to be thread. The Jags beat the Colts, Steelers beat the Ravens, no tie.
For you all to make, you had a 5%
to make the Steelers had a 5% tie. But, Collinsworth talked about it all through the game that, maybe you're incented to, if you're the Raiders and Chargers, to tie the game at some point. If you get to a place, and it does sound like, it's not exactly clear, it sounds like the Raiders kind of were of that mind, like, all right, we have the ball in a position here where we could conceivably kick the game-winning field goal, but if we just take a knee, we both go to the playoffs. And I can't tell if they actually were really going to do that if the Chargers hadn't called a timeout with 30-something seconds left in the overtime there. But what just an all-time weirdo. But as I try to tell people, for all our teams, including Cleveland Browns fans, I don't have to tell Browns fans this. I know it's vexing to go another year, especially in a year that was supposed to be a magical one, and you were supposed to make a big Super Bowl push, and you didn't even make the playoffs. But the Browns kept you in the mix into and pretty much through the holidays once again. That's what sports are good for us. So every chapter, every week equals another chapter, and as long as you're not out of it in October, it's a successful season. It keeps you warm. It keeps you engaged for another week as a fan. It keeps your eye on something. And, if nothing else, the AFC North gave all 4 of its fan bases that. All 4 teams were pretty much in it through Christmas time. And some pretty fun, some knuckleball games that people outside the Rust Belt probably can't vibe to and are sad that the video game antics of Justin Herbert don't carry over into the playoffs, but people in the Rust Belt get that those 15-10 results are somehow more memorable and more special because they're so sort of ugly to look at from the outside.
Yep. Everyone has an off season. Some teams, the off season is longer than others. And Dave, you guys get to extend this season and cheering of football another week. And here we are, the Browns once again. Dave, there's some fans in a really dark place here, man. It was a very volatile season as a fan, as a player. You mentioned we did have Super Bowl aspirations, a big Super Bowl push from what we did last year. Man, from another fan base, are you just like enjoying what you're watching? I asked you, like, was the Browns game in Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago like the most fun game you've watched like all season? It just seemed like the worst thing for a Browns fan to kind of watch, and the worst thing for a Browns quarterback to play through. And as a Steelers fan, it seemed like the perfect Steelers game.
I think now it feels like, so many chapters ago, I can't even recall how far back it is in the novel of the 2021 season. But yeah. I felt like when the Bengals rallied and beat the Broncos in Denver, whatever that was, 3-4 weeks ago, I thought that's the one, because I think the AFC North only is going to get one team in. And when the Bengals survived that one, I thought that's going to be the margin that puts them over the top, because I thought they were going to beat the Chiefs in Cincy as they did last week. And so I thought, that's it. Now Steelers, Browns, Roethlisberger's last game in Hines. My concern was, from the Steelers' point of view, is, boy, Roethlisberger, all this comes back after the embarrassment in Hines at the hands of the Browns a year ago, crying on the field and all of that, and embarrassment and all that. And now it's just going to turn around and be maybe the same thing. Browns should win this game still. What answer is this Steelers defense going to have for Nick Chubb? They should just truck him, and it'll be sad that Roethlisberger delayed the inevitable by a year, and it's going to wind up in the exact same spot. And I was kind of right, because he did wind up crying on the field after the Browns game, but he was happy about it. So yeah, so that was satisfying. My main takeaway is, outside of a few, every fan base has mouthy, obnoxious people whose first instinct is, when your team wins, is to shout out all the other people, like all the other fans, fan bases. And like, if that's your instinct, you ain't doing it right. You should feel joy, not your first thing shouldn't be to stick it to somebody else, I don't think, but whatever. Outside of a few noteworthy exceptions among Cleveland fans, I feel bad because for you guys, because and who I feel bad for too is Baker Mayfield, because I know you guys really thought, I know you feel once again a little bit like Charlie Brown's, and got loosied once again by another quarterback. That was the surefire. Finally, the curse is over. We finally found our guy in Baker Mayfield. And man, from the shoulder injury on this year, I get why he had to play for his own sake, because if Case Keenum comes in and takes you to the playoffs, where does that leave Baker Mayfield in the future? And the answer is basically where he is now, where it's sort of like, I don't know if this is the right guy, but
he was in a lose-lose, really. Because
he really was. If he shoots you guys into the playoffs with the bum shoulder, now he's a legend forever in Cleveland. Like, if it's like he did it with a belt wrapped around his neck and his shoulder, and he can't play, but he still did it anyway. And that game against the Steelers in Cleveland, rallying late, the Steelers knock him out of bounds, and you didn't know if he was hurt, and he jumped up and he runs and he makes that first down mark. And I thought, this is it. This is what the Browns need. They need chip on the shoulder guy like Baker Mayfield, and I love it. And he's perfect for that town. And then I don't remember, he got intercepted. I think he got picked off or whatever. They turned
That's
the ball
about
over.
how every story goes. It seems like,
and it's like,
gets you pumped and excited.
Right. Well, so I feel bad mostly for you guys, especially because now you look down within your own state, and you have another guy who plays kind of with that chip on the shoulder, and I don't care, and F you if you don't get it, and all that. But Joe Burrow happens to be better at actual football than Baker Mayfield. So I don't know where.
Listen, we don't need your pity, Dave Dameshek. I appreciate it. No. It is like, if he didn't play, and we have the same record and reports come out, well, he might have been healthy enough to play. Well, then what does that look like? Right? Like if he doesn't play after week 3 and then they're like, well, he could have toughed through it, but he didn't, then that's a losing situation for him. If he doesn't play in case takes us to the playoffs, which I don't think he didn't look, I mean, we won against the Bengals second team, but he did not look very good. I don't think, I didn't see anything special that Baker couldn't have done.
Oh no. Yeah. I think you guys will take a run at, I think I'd be surprised. I know they've got him under control this year, Baker, contractually, but that I don't think that precludes them from, oh, look at this. You got people coming.
Yeah. I think my son just woke up.
Look at that poor boy. He's got a lifetime of Browns in the waiting him. All right. Wow.
Hey, you got to train him right, man. Yeah. No,
you're not that far from Pittsburgh. Take him on a road trip and let nature take its course. I think he'll vibe to the right thing. But yeah, I think that I'd be surprised if they don't take a run at Russell Wilson this year, this offseason. I don't know that Aaron Rodgers makes any sense in the Rust Belt. People are talking about that in Pittsburgh too. Like, do you think Aaron Rodgers wants out of Green Bay so he can go to a Rust Belt team? He and Shailene are looking to move to like, I think if he leaves Green Bay, it'll be for maybe Denver, maybe LA, maybe say, I don't think he's moving further east up to a place as cold as Green Bay. But yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting offseason for him, for Bake, and for Browns fans, because it's, I suspect that you guys probably are a little impatient all of a sudden about the idea of like, okay, we're going to run it back with Baker one more time, but then that's really going to be it if he doesn't do it. I feel like you need some alternative to satiate the fan base. You need to have some 1A ready to go. If in fact they're like, Bake's our week 1 starter, everybody, but that you guys have to have some, right? I mean, I'm trying to divine how you feel, but I can't imagine you guys are going to be like, okay, we're cool with Baker again in 2022 after the way this season's gone.
Man, there has been tweets, reports, fake reports, clickbait, all ad nauseum of what the Browns going to do. And it's the same conversation, different year, just look differently. We're still looking for the answer that everyone likes at quarterback. I feel like I'm in the minority. I like Baker. I think he should be our week 1 starter. If they bring in competition, which they might, I still think week 1, he's going to be under center. The only scenario where that doesn't happen is if with the exodus that's happening in Minnesota, if there's a bunch of people that come over in Stefanski and Kirk Cousins ends up with us in Cleveland. He and Stefanski are still close. Like there were reports about how close they are. I think if he's on the Browns, I think he's going to start week 1, but any other scenario, I think it's going to be it's going to be Baker under center week 1.
I think, and you can almost talk yourself into it, except that the season was so bad for Baker, but offensive coordinators and GMs and everything are arrogant, just like, big time quarterbacks are. And so there is the, like, I can fix this guy mentality all over. So I think like Baker Mayfield is potentially an actual chip. If people can laugh at that, but in trade, if like, with the Vikings or with the Seahawks, as I said, you could laugh about it, but it's like, we'll give you Baker Mayfield. So, he's a viable starting quarterback if he's healthy. He's not the man. He's not one of the 3 or 5 best in the league, but like, if you give us your guy, we give you him, you have him under control for a year, at least to help with the transition a little bit, along with some picks. I think that's maybe something that would be good for Baker, because it's starting to take on that stink of things ain't all together right there. There's too much noise and too many tweets from Baker, his wife, about this organization and the fans and everything else. Maybe fresh start is what both sides need, as they say.
I hope they have those hard conversations. I hope they work it out. I hope they sit down and say, hey, like, this is X, Y, and Z. Baker did say that he's had to spend more time rehabbing than like on leadership, which I thought was an interesting quote. And I hope they do. I think it is salvageable. I think it's going to be difficult, but I hope they do, because I think that's what good teams do. That's what positive cultures do. And I think to get out of the same old Browns, you're just going to have to figure it out and make it work. I don't care how. We're 8-9 or whatever our record was. We have 8 games and we were in it, like you said, through the holidays. That's light years ahead of where we were for the last 20 years. And this is the second year that we were legitimately playoff contenders. We didn't make the playoffs.
I mean, man, I know every fan base can do this. And, they, as they say, like every team is 500, or there are a couple of outliers positively, like the Packers. There's no case that they could have been 500, and the Jags or whatever, like there's no case that they could have been 500 if a couple of things break, right? Most teams though are right there, give or take a possession here or there. But I mean, like Browns fans, I can spin it, and I'm sure you have, like, you had the Chiefs beaten in Arrowhead at the start of the season. You guys should have won that game.
Mm-hmm.
And, you look at the just off the top of my head, that Steelers game in Cleveland, you guys really could have won that one too. And there you go. You're in the playoffs and everybody's feeling great in Cleveland. So it is very narrow stuff, but the Odell, like I say, the way that all happened and everything, it just feels like, I don't know, lose the locker room or whatever, but it does feel like, the thing that's nice with the Bengals, if you're a Cincy fan, which neither of us is, the sweet spot, the magic spot to be in pro football in the 21st century, in the age of free agency, is to have the real deal at quarterback, to know that guy is for real the franchise, and he can take us very far in the postseason, and have him on his rookie deal. Because now it's not just this season, but it's the next 3 that the Bengals will have control of Burrow, and he'll be on his rookie deal. And so they're going to be able to flesh out that roster even further in the next couple of years. And with the momentum of success and everything else, their people will want to be a part of that and everything else. Bake, now it's his last year. So this is your last window of having a QB on his rookie deal before you move into that phase of like diminishing returns. No matter how good the quarterback is, even in the age of Brady winning Super Bowls in his 40s, the numbers indicate that the majority of Super Bowls are won with a franchise quarterback while he's on his rookie deal in years 2 to 5. That's when I think 20 Super Bowls have been won in the 20, or have been 20 teams have played in the Super Bowl with their franchise QB on his rookie deal, and 16 of guys year 6 and beyond. So the numbers indicate that that's the sweet spot that you want to be in. So the Browns are about to move out of that. They might want to reboot, get a kid out of the draft. And there are some options, as there always are every spring now in the QB rich college ranks.
Well, hey, I want to take a quick break. I still want to talk about the Bengals. I still want to talk a little bit about the quarterbacks, and I want to present a scenario to you, Dave, which I think could be the reversing time that can fix everything. So stick around. I'll be right back.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Listen, it is beyond time for you to join a book club. I know you've been thinking about it, and everyone's doing it. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
Hey everyone, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. Backed by popular demand, I'm excited to let you know that new episodes of the Hyman Podcast will drop every other Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're going to continue the conversations we started last season and keep having those hard conversations. There is so much in store for you this season, and I'm excited to share it with you. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single moment. The Hyman Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R Podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Red Guy and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Looking for new insights on the Cleveland sports scene with a unique side of Cleveland sports history? Then you found the perfect podcast. I'm John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable, and we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports, but not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams. Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history with the help of some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures.
All right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, we're back. And hey, you touched on Aaron Rodgers. I want to hit on that really quick here with Dave Dameshek, Extra Points Network, renowned Steelers fan. Dave, why is there not talk? Is the only reason why there's not talk about Aaron Rodgers to the 49ers because they just drafted Trey Lance? Like, why wouldn't that be a thing if he from that area? Like, I don't know. You do what you can to get Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think that's right. And if I remember correctly, maybe I don't know. Too many things happened in the last 36 hours for me to remember 2 weeks ago, let alone 11 months ago. But if I remember, didn't the Niners kind of at least ask after him, or was that Brady?
No,
but
that was in the draft. That was during the draft, I think.
Yeah. So once you make the move on Trey Lance and you have Jimmy G, I guess the math just doesn't make sense there to go get Aaron Rodgers. But once Jimmy G has moved on, I guess it makes some sense, but that's kind of a bad look if you're Lynch and Shanahan that you went 2-3 to get Trey Lance. I think it's a kind of a bad look now almost. I mean, listen, if they pull off an upset against the Cowboys, then everything will be right as rain this season. But it's kind of weird that wouldn't you have thought that they would have made the switch to Lance by this? I'm sure they.
I think a lot about it's weird. Then not knowing who they're going to draft and hearing reports of, they like different quarterbacks after they trade. The whole thing is just weird. And at this point, just chalk it. Like if there's a way to get Aaron Rodgers, I think any team would, do almost anything, regardless of what he's done off the field. That's like you said, quarterback driven league, and Aaron Rodgers, whoever it is, you make it happen. So you were talking before the break about Joe Burrow. Are we really in a world where the Bengals are the driver's seat for the AFC North for the next 5-7 years? Is that where we're at, Dave?
I mean, this will maybe hurt your feelings, but 1 year ago at this time, the exact conversation was taking place with are we really in a world where the Cleveland Browns are going to rule the division for the next half decade?
That's right.
Change fast, but that being said, it sure does feel that way.
Oh man,
because they're loaded up. They've got the most important position apparently solved. And there's something about the swagger. Like I say, don't you feel that coming through the TV screen when you watch them? It's sort of like this sort of, it's not just like, I'm not scared. It's like there's an FU quality to his, just the cutaways to him. It's like, all right, we're going to go score now. We're going to go take the lead back. There's the no blink or whatever way people describe it. But, more practically, those three pass catchers he has are great. Mixon is obviously one of the better runners going. The offensive line came together and probably improves even in the offseason. And the defense at least has some playmakers on it. That could get better. Everybody is flawed. In the age of free agency, Chiefs, Buccaneers, Patriots, whoever, every team has flaws. And so people point out that the Bengals allow big plays. That is an issue. But the way the AFC is this year, I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's a complete shock if the Bengals get to the Super Bowl as soon as this year. But either way, they're certainly, barring what, who knows what changes will happen this offseason. But I'd be surprised now if there's anybody other than the Bengals that are pretty clearly favored to win the North in 2022, right? I don't know what the Ravens could possibly do. I mean, I guess if we woke up in 2 months and like, oh, the Steelers got Russell Wilson, then maybe I would change my tune a little bit. But as it stands, yeah, the Bengals are going to be the big favorite going into next season.
I would say you guys will be in the conversation about Aaron Rodgers. You'll be in the top 3 likelihood of places he'll land, I'm sure, just off of the Mike Tomlin.
I don't buy it, but okay.
But yeah, I think it'll be close. I think the Bengals will be favored a little bit higher than the Ravens. The Ravens have been decimated by injuries this year. Like even before the season started, and to have their fast start was, I thought, overachieving. And the Browns will probably open up and last just because of the leap that Burrow made, the Ravens' health, and the Steelers' machine. I think the Bengals are going to be limited by their coach. I still don't trust Zach Taylor. I still don't like him. I think Burrow succeeds in spite of him sometimes. And I still, gosh, Dave, I do not like the Steelers. All right. I just want you to know that. But what Mike Tomlin's been able to do, why can't you guys have a chance in Arrowhead? I mean, Tomlin is one of the top coach. I think he's better than Andy Reid. I think Andy Reid is, I want to coach the Chiefs. Can I coach the Chiefs, Dave? Can we coach? I mean, you put a coach in as a Chiefs coach and they're going to be successful just with the team. You can't put any coach of Steelers and they're going to be in the playoffs. That doesn't happen. And so when you get to the playoffs, I think it is about quarterback and coaching, and you guys have a darn good coach. You might need help with but like
there's some guys do bad. It feels to me like this is the case with Tomlin. He handles a super talented roster very well, as we saw some really high-end teams with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and Ben Roethlisberger closer to his prime and on down, have some 13-3 kind of years and everything else. And then they stumbled. He does fine with that. But I think what he does best is that sort of like backs to the wall and no one believes in us. And how are we going to handle this adversity kind of thing? I think that's where he really thrives. And so, yeah, they maybe can pull off it's not an impossibility. You've watched this Chiefs team this year. They're prone to turning the ball over some weeks. And if Mahomes has one of those kind of days, of course, I mean, it wouldn't be the biggest upset in playoff history or anything like that, but it's hard to see what happened 3 weeks ago when the Steelers went to Arrowhead and the just complete drubbing. That's the evidence to me. It's not that, if they hadn't played each other, I would be like, maybe, but I saw that game that was just a dominant performance there. They're nowhere near in class to the Chiefs. And so I don't see any reason why they'd be competitive here, but I can tell you honestly, I really feel like we're playing with house money. I really don't care. This is such a successful season in my book that it really doesn't matter if they lose by 50 here.
Oh, I want you to lose by 50. I'm just saying that you have Mike Tomlin. I think he always gives you a chance. And as a Browns fan, that's infuriating. I don't think he's been in a lot of situations where he's been the underdog. I think you guys are so consistently competitive and so consistently good. Like he probably is relishing the fact that, we have an away game that no one's expecting us to be here. No one thought we'd be here. And so I can see the excitement on his end, at least, to say, hey, like this is like our opportunity to really continue to shock the world or whatever.
Well, the thing I always talk about is the curse is supposed to, and it's when you're supposed to win, that is extra pressure on your shoulders. And I've talked to a lot of professional athletes about this, and I say, is this a fan creation or is that something you actually feel? And that is one of the things that does get in their heads. You hear all the time, no one outside our locker room believed in us. But the other side of that is true. When you are supposed to win, like the Chiefs, imagine where they sit now. Like, oh my God, we better not. We're giving 13 points to this team. We just killed them. We're supposed to whip this team. Like we better whip this team. So that any adversity in the early part of the game for the home team then makes it a home field disadvantage. If you get to halftime and the road team's running off the field and they have a lead, like the crowd that nervous energy gets down onto the sideline, both sidelines, and both sidelines feel it. And if you start to feel like we're a band against these 70,000, we can break their hearts. And Patrick Mahomes like, oh my God, am I going to lose this game on this? We're supposed to go to the Super Bowl and all that kind of stuff. That's the chance that they have.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what do you see the future of the Steelers looking like after this season? Whatever happens, Dave, I mean, do you see them bringing in a quarterback? Do you see you guys drafting a quarterback? What will the Steelers look like in 2022?
I'd be very surprised, especially with the news that Kevin Colbert, their longtime GM, is retiring after this season, or after the draft, I should say. A thing that he has said that he intends to do is to not leave them without replacement for Roethlisberger. I don't think he knows. I don't think he believes deep down that Mason Rudolph is the long-term answer. At least maybe Mason Rudolph is the week 1 starter. I'd be very surprised if they don't get somebody in the draft. And for all this is the worst QB draft in 8 years or whatever, it's still rich with some nice options out there. If Matt Corral somehow fell, do you think the Steelers wouldn't be happy about that? Or Desmond Ridder, or Kenny Pickett, or Millay? There a lot of, Sam Howell started the year as the Heisman favorite, and now he's falling down. So there's going to be somebody there for them to get. Maybe they try to move heaven and earth to get Russell Wilson, but that doesn't feel like, I don't know that they have the assets to do it. They have a lot of cap room to do that, but they don't necessarily have the picks, and they're a flawed roster. So they would have to give up picks to do that. And then you wind up being the Rams if you do that, who are now all in. And if they don't, do you think the Rams are going to win the Super Bowl 3 years from now? I wonder if they'll regret having overcommitted to try and get this Super Bowl. Steelers are more stable than that in the way they operate. They're not a one and done year kind of operation. They're kind of like always keeping themselves in the mix by making good, sober decisions, like not trading away 3 first-round picks to get one guy. I think they'll draft somebody. And, listen, in a division with Burrow, and I really do think they're better off. I think the Ravens have to sign Lamar Jackson. And I understand it for any number of reasons, but I don't think that sets them up for great long-term success. Once you're paying that guy $40 million, I think they're like, it's going to make it very hard to have a good roster top to bottom. And, Calais Campbell, I don't know if he's back. Derek Wolfe, like they got old. And I said that all through the offseason. The problem with the Ravens is not Lamar Jackson. It's that defense. And that's what proved true. And kind of the injuries get Harbaugh and DeCosta off the hook. That roster was not great. I said all year, that team's not going to win the division. They're not going to make the playoffs. I was proven right. And people say, well, the injuries. And so you're right with an asterisk. I think there was something about that team that was phony for a long time there. And I think Lamar Jackson could have been in there for the home run, for the home stretch here. I still don't think they would have made the playoffs.
I agree. I think the Ravens have a lot of work to do. Lamar Jackson is incredibly talented. I'm glad he's not the quarterback of the Browns, just for the limitations throwing what he brings. I mean, last night's game, case in point, I think if Lamar was leading a 2-minute drive, it would have looked way differently than what we saw from Herbert or anything like that. I mean, there were just some throws and stuff, and that's nothing. This isn't like groundbreaking comments. Like, people know that, Jackson sometimes struggles throwing the ball with his accuracy. Dave, I want to paint you this picture here, okay? And just relive with me a little bit. Roethlisberger goes to Miami University in Ohio. Browns need a quarterback. Don't draft him. Steelers pick him up, and he dominates the Browns for, he's like 25 wins. He has the most quarterback wins, I think, in First Energy. Like, it's stupid. Here's my scenario that I want to pitch that I think could fix a lot of this if it happens. Kenny Pickett went to Pittsburgh. What if you guys do not take him? We get him in the 2nd or 3rd round, and then he ends up owning the Steelers for the next 18 years, just kind of like a little reversal of what Roethlisberger did here, and it kind of set the world right, David. Is that possible?
I think that's gross. I don't like where your head is on this. Not our fault that you guys decided, hey, we got Jeff Garcia. We got to get him a weapon. Let's get Kellen Winslow Jr. instead of Big Ben Roethlisberger. What a shame that's been. I think the problem with that is, well, here's what could happen. Forget second or third round. Kenny Pickett's going in the first, and he's going high first. I think the Browns could conceivably take him if he's there. I think by the time the whole Senior Bowl, combine, all that stuff is done, he's going to be, look at it, this happens every year.
Every quarterbacks go so high every year.
There aren't any guys worthy of a first round pick this year. Got to wait till next year. Bryce Young is better than anybody in this draft. And like, what's the math on like, we know we need a quarterback, but we don't like these guys. So let's just give up this year. Like, how are you getting Bryce? It doesn't guarantee you anything anyway. Like the tank for Tua, like you see the flaw in that. If you did tank for Tua, you're sorry you did and didn't take Herbert.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that would be a good pick. I think if you guys wound up with Pickett, I think he projects, if you're optimistic, I think he projects to have very similar skills as Joe Burrow does. I think, and the trajectory is the same too. Like kind of like, nice guy, nice prospect, get drafted on day 2 and everything. And then one magical year, his senior year, where, wow, good thing he came back and everything changes for him. If you look at the top 10 of the draft as it lays out now, you can identify, like, they're going to be,
Jacksonville's one.
Guys.
They don't need
They're
a
not going
quarterback.
to take a QB.
Lions need a QB. They're 2. Texans QB. They need a QB at 3.
That could happen. That could happen. They're not going to.
Giants, I could maybe. The Panthers, yes, they're at 6. Giants again at 7. Falcons at 8. They better take a quarterback. Broncos at 9. So there are a ton of quarterback needs.
I mean, tell me that like that when people do that thing of like they're not going to be any quarterbacks drafted in the top 15. Like,
yes.
I mean, really, do you really believe that? Because how many times they're going to be at least 2, maybe 3 or 4, and not late firsts either. I mean, like it's going to be like it was in 2018.
Yep.
They're going to be, all those guys are going to go in the top dozen or so. So I don't know that the problem for a team like Pittsburgh at 20 is I don't know that who's going to be left there. Maybe Howell though from UNC. That's kind of, or Malik Willis at Liberty. I could see those, but I think, like I say, I think Ritter, Corral, Pickett at least are going to be gone off the board within the first 10 or 12 picks.
Yeah, I think there'll be 3 to 5 quarterbacks in the first 10 or 15 picks. It happens every year that they're always overdrafted. It was just a fun scenario. I saw like,
I don't like it. I think it stinks. And I think you should be ashamed of yourself just because we took Chuck Noll and Ben Roethlisberger from Ohio doesn't make it right for you to try and return that favor. Stay away.
Well, Dave, the saying goes, keep your friends close. And so I just want to say thanks for coming on the pod again, man. Always love talking football, and worst of luck to you guys against the Chiefs on Sunday, man.
Is it really better though for the Chiefs to win? Is that what you want to see? The Chiefs have caused you plenty of pain, haven't they? They beat you. Should have beaten them. Almost beat them in the playoffs last year. Who knows?
Targeting no call. Yep.
Right. Well, then they beat you because of the dumb punter thing. And what was that, week 1 or 2, whenever that happened this year? Like the Chiefs have caused you at least as much pain as the Steelers have.
No, I'm pretty sure I checked my bed underneath the bed for Troy Polamalu. Like there are still like nightmares I have for the Steelers. It's all good. Dave, thank you so much. It'll be fun.
Yeah, great times. Always fun kibitzing with you on Twitter and Browns fans and everything else going back and forth. That's the good time of, as we say, 17 editions every year now of these chapters every year that we get to follow our team. So it's fun to talk stuff back and forth throughout the football season.
Well, that does it for this episode of the Chase Smith Podcast. Thank you all so much for downloading and listening. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Follow us online at Press Play Pods. Visit our website at pressplaypodcast.com to keep up with all of our shows and network news. Dave, where could other people listen to you? I know you talked about it a little bit, but where are you at, man? Where could we find your stuff?
follow me at Dameshek on Twitter and, -3 pod, Extra Points pod. Those are the shows to track down there, and appreciate it.
Great. Dave, thank you so much, man. Have a good week.
Have a good off season.
Yeah.